Somewhere out there, across the cold silence of space, alien commanders are learning one terrifying truth. Never underestimate a Death Worlder. Welcome to HFY Death World Stories, where humanity shows the galaxy what we're made of. Wars, warships, alien encounters, raw human fire.
Supreme Commander Torvin watched the holographic display flicker with thousands of green markers. Each one represented a warship under his command. 9,900 vessels stretched across the void like a metal ocean. The largest armada the Dralian hegemony had ever assembled now floated in perfect formation beyond Neptune's orbit. The bridge crew worked in silence. Officers from 17 different species coordinated the final positioning of the fleet. Some had scales, others had fur, a few existed as energy patterns inside containment suits. All served the same purpose: conquest. Supreme Commander, all battle groups report ready status, First Officer Culrith announced. His 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of anticipation among his kind. Torvin pulled up the tactical analysis of Earth, a blue-green marble spinning peacefully in the third orbit. His intelligence officers had spent cycles studying this target. 200 orbital defense platforms, 400 primitive warships, a species that had barely touched their own moon with living beings a mere century ago. "They call themselves humans," Torvin said, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "They have fought each other for thousands of years but never faced a real threat from the stars." The data streams showed Earth's military capabilities: nuclear weapons, chemical propulsion, early plasma cannons, technology that the hegemony had abandoned 3,000 years ago. This would not be a battle, it would be an extermination. "Begin the approach vector," Torvin commanded. "I want them to see us coming, let them feel the weight of their insignificance." The fleet moved as one entity. Faster-than-light drives engaged in waves, creating ripples in space itself. Within hours, 9,900 warships materialized in Mars' orbit. The red planet hung below them like a drop of blood. Far below, on Earth's surface, alarms screamed across every military installation. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in the Orbital Defense Command Center, buried 3 miles beneath the Rocky Mountains. Screens surrounded her, each showing a different angle of the approaching nightmare. "Confirmed count," a young officer said, his voice cracking. 9,894 vessels. No, wait, 9,900, they keep appearing. Patricia had gray hair and steady hands. She had spent 40 years in the service, fought in 3 regional conflicts, and commanded 2 carrier groups. Nothing in her experience prepared her for this moment. Humanity's first contact with alien life, and they brought an armada. "Status of the defense fleet?" she asked calmly. "All 400 ships moving to intercept positions. Orbital platforms charging weapons. We're evacuating the civilian stations." Patricia nodded. 400 against nearly 10,000. The math was simple. Humanity would lose, but she had not risen to admiral by accepting defeat. "Send the activation codes," she said quietly. "All of them." The officer hesitated. "Admiral, that's every protocol, every contingency, if we activate everything now." "Do it." Her fingers moved across the command console. Buried throughout the solar system, hidden weapons platforms received their wake-up calls. On the far side of the moon, massive hangar doors that had not opened in 5 years began to slide apart. Torvin broadcast his message on all human frequencies. His image appeared on every screen, every device, every display on Earth. The translation software converted his speech into hundreds of human languages simultaneously. "Primitive species of the 3rd planet, you exist at our mercy. Surrender your world, your resources, and your freedom. You have 24 hours to comply. Resistance will result in your extinction. This is your only warning." The transmission ended. Patricia watched the message repeat on the monitors. Around her, officers waited for orders. Above them, civilian populations huddled in bunkers and shelters. Every human alive knew what came next. She opened a direct channel to every military unit on Earth and in orbit. "This is Admiral Hayes. You all saw their message. You all know what they want." She paused, letting her words sink in. "They think we're primitives. They think we're weak. They looked at our technology and assumed we would roll over like frightened animals." Her voice grew harder. "They don't know that humans have been killing each other with ever-increasing efficiency for 10,000 years. They don't know we split the atom just to make bigger bombs. They don't know we've spent the last century preparing for this exact scenario because we knew someday something would come from the stars." Patricia pulled up the tactical display. "Every ship, every platform, every weapon we've built, hidden and tested, today we show them what happens when you threaten Earth." She turned to her command staff. "Send our response." A simple text message broadcast toward the hegemony fleet. 3 words in simple English. "Come and try." Torvin received the message. He read it twice, then began to laugh. The sound echoed through his bridge. His officers joined in, amused by the audacity of such a primitive response. "They reject our mercy," Torvin announced. "Very well, prepare the first assault wave. 1,000 ships should be sufficient to break their spirit. We will leave the survivors to tell stories of their foolishness." Kulrith programmed the attack coordinates. 1,000 warships separated from the main fleet and began their approach toward Earth. Below on humanity's homeworld, Patricia Hayes watched them come. Every military installation went to maximum alert. Pilots climbed into fighters. Ships charged their weapons. Ancient defense satellites that hadn't moved in decades slowly rotated toward the enemy. Her console chimed. Every hidden asset confirmed ready status. The moon bases, the asteroid platforms, the contingency fleets. Everything humanity had built in secret over the past 50 years waiting for this moment. "All units weapons free," Patricia said. "Show them what humans do to invaders." Lieutenant Roger Barnes felt the fighter shake as the launch catapult fired. 1 second he sat in the carrier bay, the next he screamed through space at 3,000 meters per second. His squadron of 12 fighters formed up around him in tight formation. "Gold Squadron, this is Orbital Command. Enemy Vanguard incoming, 1,000 contacts. You are cleared to engage." Roger checked his weapons display. 4 missiles, 2 plasma cannons, enough ammunition for maybe 90 seconds of sustained combat. Against 1,000 warships, it seemed laughable. "Gold Leader to all wings," Roger transmitted. "Remember your training, fast attack runs, hit and fade, make every shot count." The enemy appeared on his sensors like a wall of metal. Each hegemony warship measured over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons. His fighter could fit inside one of their cargo bays. "They're not even taking evasive action," his wingman said. "They're just flying straight at us." Roger understood why. The aliens saw no threat. 400 human ships against 1,000 of theirs, and those were just the advance units. The remaining 8,900 waited behind Mars, ready to mop up whatever survived. "All ships execute pattern Delta," Roger ordered. The human fleet scattered in every direction. The hegemony commanders watched with confusion as their targets refused to form a battle line. Instead, human vessels darted between asteroids, dove below the orbital plane, and accelerated past maximum safe speeds. Aboard the hegemony flagship of the Vanguard, Commander Gretick studied the tactical display with growing irritation. "They flee before we even fire," he said. "Pathetic." His weapons officer disagreed. "Sir, they're not fleeing, they're spreading out. If we pursue, we'll have to divide our formation." "Then we divide it, hunt them down individually. I want this finished before Supreme Commander Torvin arrives." The 1,000 hegemony ships broke into hunting groups. 10 vessels pursued each human ship. The mathematics favored the aliens overwhelmingly. Roger led his squadron directly toward an asteroid field. 6 hegemony destroyers followed, their massive weapons charging. They fired. Plasma bolts the size of buildings streaked past his fighter. One caught his wingman, The explosion was instant. "Gold 3 is gone," someone reported. Roger dove between two tumbling asteroids. The hegemony ships followed. Their sensors showed the human fighter had nowhere to run. The asteroids provided no real cover. Victory was certain. Then the asteroids opened fire. Hidden weapons platforms, disguised as space rocks, activated simultaneously. Rail guns launched tungsten rounds at relativistic speeds. Missile pods that had sat dormant for years erupted with nuclear-tipped warheads. Laser batteries carved through hegemony shields like paper. 3 destroyers died in the first 5 seconds. The remaining 3 scattered, their formation broken. Roger banked hard and fired his missiles into the confused enemy ships. Each found their mark. Explosions blossomed against the starfield. Across the battlefield, the same scene repeated hundreds of times. Human ships led their pursuers into kill zones. The asteroid belt came alive with hidden weapons. What looked like debris fields revealed themselves as minefields. Orbital paths the aliens assumed were empty-held clouds of autonomous attack drones. Gredic watched his vanguard die in pieces. Within 20 minutes, 300 ships showed catastrophic damage. Another 200 reported shield failures and weapon malfunctions. "How," he demanded, "our intelligence showed no such capabilities." His tactical officer pulled up new scans. "Sir, they've weaponized their entire solar system. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris. It's all been modified." A human destroyer, burning and venting atmosphere, suddenly accelerated directly toward Gredic's flagship. The alien crew scrambled to target it, but the human ship moved with suicidal speed. "Brace for impact." The destroyer hit at 40 kilometers per second. Its cargo hold full of fusion bombs. The explosion consumed Gredic's flagship and 4 other vessels nearby. Patricia Hayes watched the battle unfold from her command center. Green icons representing human ships winked out one by one, but each took multiple red enemy markers with them. "We've lost 90 ships," an officer reported. "Enemy has lost 400 and counting." "Continue the assault," Patricia ordered. "All remaining ships execute Protocol Scorched Sky." Every human vessel received the same command: "Stop holding back, spend everything." Ship captains who had been rationing ammunition now emptied their magazines. Fighters on their last reserves made ramming runs. Damaged vessels set themselves to self-destruct and aimed for enemy formations. The hegemony vanguard broke. Ships that had come to conquer now fled back toward Mars. Their crews had never experienced resistance like this. Every species they had subjugated before surrendered after the first demonstration of force. These humans fought like cornered predators. Torvin observed the retreat with cold rage. His vanguard, 1,000 of his finest ships, now numbered only 600. They had destroyed perhaps 200 human vessels, but the cost was unacceptable. "The humans fight with no regard for their own survival," Culrith noted. "Then they will die," Torvin said flatly. "I wanted to conquer this world. Now I will settle for its destruction. All ships advance. Every vessel, maximum firepower. Turn their planet to glass." 9,900 ships became 8,900 as the damaged vanguard limped back to formation. The entire hegemony armada began moving toward Earth. They advanced slowly, weapons charged, shields at maximum. Patricia saw them coming. Thousands of capital ships, cruisers, destroyers, and carriers. Firepower than humanity had ever faced. Enough weapons to crack a planet. She had one more card to play. "Open Lunar Hangar Bay 7, she commanded. On the moon's far side, massive doors finished opening. Inside, 2,000 warships sat in perfect rows. Humanity's real fleet, built in secret over 5 decades, hidden where no telescope or satellite could ever see them. Every ship activated its engines simultaneously. The formation lifted from the lunar surface like a steel cloud. Roger Barnes, now piloting a damaged fighter on fumes, saw them rise. 2,000 fresh warships, armed with weapons the aliens had never seen. Technology reverse-engineered from every piece of alien wreckage humanity had secretly recovered over the years. The real battle was about to begin. Kulrith felt something he had never experienced in 17 years of military service. Fear. The tactical display showed 2,000 new human warships rising from the moon's far side, ships that had not existed in any intelligence report, vessels that appeared more advanced than anything the hegemony possessed. "Where did they come from?" an officer whispered. Torvin stared at the display. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of agitation. The humans had been hiding their true strength. Everything they had destroyed so far was just the opening act. "All ships maintain formation," Torvin commanded. "We still outnumber them 4-1. Conventional tactics will prevail." The human fleet accelerated toward the hegemony armada. No fancy maneuvers this time, no tricks or traps, just a direct charge, ship against ship, weapon against weapon. Patricia Hayes studied the battlefield from her command center. 8,900 enemy vessels in a tight defensive formation. Her 2,000 scattered ships plus 200 survivors from the first engagement. The math still favored the aliens. "All vessels target their capital ships first. Ignore the destroyers. We need to cut the head off this snake." The fleets met in the space between Earth and Mars. The first exchange of fire lit up the void like a new sun being born. Plasma beams crossed the distance in seconds. Missiles flew in swarms of thousands. Railgun rounds moved at fractions of light speed. A human cruiser named Defiant fired its main cannon directly into a hegemony battleship. The round punched through 3 decks before detonating. The alien vessel split in half, its atmosphere venting in frozen clouds. But the hegemony returned fire with overwhelming volume. 10 ships focused their weapons on Defiant. The human cruiser's shields held for exactly 4 seconds before collapsing. The ship came apart under concentrated plasma fire. Across the battlefield, the pattern repeated. Human ships used superior speed and weapons, but the aliens had numbers. For every hegemony vessel destroyed, humanity lost one of their own. Roger Barnes had managed to land his damaged fighter in a carrier's bay. Now he ran through corridors, looking for any ship that could still fly. He found a bomber, half-fueled and missing most of its armor plating. "Good enough," he muttered, climbing into the cockpit. The carrier shuddered as enemy fire struck its hull. Roger launched without clearance, rocketing out of the bay just as a hegemony missile turned the carrier into an expanding debris field. His scanner showed friendly ships dying everywhere. The bomber had 1 heavy torpedo left. He needed to make it count. A hegemony command carrier loomed ahead, coordinating the alien fleet's movements. Roger armed the torpedo and dove toward it. Enemy point defense systems tracked him. Laser fire cut through space, missing by meters. He released the torpedo at point-blank range and banked hard. The weapon slammed into the carrier's bridge and detonated. The massive ship went dark, its command structure obliterated. Without coordination, the surrounding hegemony ships hesitated. That moment of confusion cost them. Human vessels concentrated fire on the leaderless group, destroying 18 ships in 90 seconds. Patricia saw the opportunity. All ships focus fire on their command vessels, break their chain of command. Human captains understood immediately. Forget the small ships. Ignore the fighters. Every weapon targeted the large carriers and battleships that controlled hegemony formations. Torvin realized the strategy too late. His fleet began to fragment as command ships died one after another. Individual captains made their own decisions. Some advanced too aggressively. Others retreated. The unified armada became a chaotic mob. "Reform the line," Torvin shouted. "Maintain formation discipline." But the humans had found their weakness. The hegemony had conquered 17 star systems because they always fought the same way. Overwhelming numbers in tight formations. Against species that fought similarly, it worked perfectly. Against humans who changed tactics every minute, it failed. A human tactic emerged that Kulrith had never seen before. Damaged ships, unable to fight, rammed enemy vessels at full speed. The crew would evacuate in escape pods, set the reactor to overload, and aim their dying ship at the nearest alien target. They used their own vessels as weapons, Kulrith said in disbelief. Torvin watched a human destroyer, streaming atmosphere and debris, accelerate into his fleet's formation. It struck a hegemony cruiser and both ships vanished in a nuclear fireball. "They're insane," Torvin said. "No," Kulrith replied quietly. "They're desperate, and desperation makes them more dangerous than any weapon." The battle raged for 6 hours. Space between Earth and Mars became a graveyard. Thousands of destroyed ships tumbled through the void. Bodies, debris, and frozen atmosphere created an artificial ring around both planets. Patricia checked the casualty reports. Humanity had lost 1,500 ships, but the hegemony had lost 4,000. The aliens still numbered nearly 5,000 vessels, but their formation was shattered. Their confidence was broken. Admiral were detecting energy buildups in their remaining battleships, a sensor officer reported. "They're charging planet-killer weapons." Patricia felt ice in her stomach. The aliens had given up on conquest. Now they simply wanted to destroy Earth itself, render it uninhabitable, a warning to any other species that resisted the hegemony. Time to firing solution. 90 minutes, maybe less. 90 minutes to save the world. Patricia looked at her remaining forces. 700 operational warships, most damaged, all low on ammunition. She opened a channel to every human ship, every station, every military installation on Earth itself. "This is Admiral Hayes. The enemy is preparing to destroy our planet. We have one chance to stop them. Every ship, every weapon, every person capable of fighting. This is humanity's final stand." She paused, letting the weight of the moment sink in. "We showed them we could fight. Now we show them we cannot be beaten. All ships full attack, no retreat, no surrender. We end this now or we die trying." 700 ships turned toward the 5,000 remaining hegemony vessels. Behind them, Earth hung in space, blue and green and beautiful, worth dying. For worth everything. Across Earth's surface, people watched the sky. Billions of humans stood outside, looking up at the stars. They could see the flashes of distant battle, brief points of light as ships died. Their fate hung in the balance, decided by men and women fighting in the void above. In orbit, the 700 remaining human ships formed a spearhead formation. Every captain knew the mission: destroy the hegemony battleships before they could fire their planet killers. Simple objective, impossible odds. Roger Barnes flew his stolen bomber alongside 200 other fighters. Most pilots were on their second or third aircraft of the day. Some flew civilian ships hastily armed with whatever weapons could be mounted. Others piloted training craft never meant for real combat. "All fighters target the battleship weapons arrays," the squadron leader transmitted. "We need to disable those cannons before they charge." The human fleet accelerated to ramming speed. Not metaphorically, literally ramming speed. Ships pushed their engines past safety limits, knowing they would never need to decelerate. Torvin watched them come, 700 ships against his 5,000. The humans had fought bravely, but mathematics could not be denied. His fleet would absorb their final attack, then turn Earth into a lifeless rock. "Let them come," he said. "Let them break themselves against our shields." The fleets collided in the largest engagement of the battle. Human ships dove into the hegemony formation like missiles. They did not try to dogfight or maintain formation. Each vessel simply picked the largest enemy ship it could find and attacked with everything it had. A human frigate named Constitution focused all power to forward shields and charged a hegemony battleship. Enemy fire tore off its armor plating. Half the crew died in the first 30 seconds. The captain kept flying. Constitution struck the battleship's hull at 12 kilometers per second. The impact created a crater 50 meters deep. The frigate's fusion reactor detonated inside the wound. The battleship split apart, taking 3 nearby cruisers with it in the explosion. Similar scenes played out across the battlefield. Human ships, dying and desperate, found that ramming at high speed proved more effective than any conventional weapon. Culrith watched his tactical display update in horror. 700 human ships, but they were destroying ships at a 5-to-1 ratio, not through superior technology or firepower, through sheer willingness to die. "They're all on suicide runs," he said, "every single ship." Torvin saw it too. The humans had abandoned any pretense of survival. Every vessel fought as if crewed by the already dead, and it was working. All ships fall back to secondary positions, maintain distance from the human vessels. But pulling back meant delaying the planet-killer weapons. The battleships needed time to charge their main cannons, time the humans refused to give them. Patricia watched her fleet die. Ship after ship went dark on her display, but each death bought time. Each ramming attack destroyed enemy vessels that could have fired on Earth. "Admiral, we're getting reports from the surface," an officer said. "Civilian vessels are launching, thousands of them." Patricia pulled up the feed. Across Earth, people were not hiding. They were fighting back. Corporate transport ships retrofitted with crude weapons climbed toward orbit. Mining vessels from the asteroid belt burned hard for the battle zone. Even luxury yachts, their owners aboard, accelerated toward the enemy with improvised explosives strapped to their hulls. "Tell them to stay back," Patricia started to say, then stopped. They were coming regardless. Every human with access to a ship had decided to fight. Roger saw them arrive. Hundreds of civilian vessels, piloted by amateurs and volunteers. A luxury yacht flew past him, its hull decorated with someone's family name. Inside, probably a businessman or tourist who had never fired a weapon. The yacht lined up on a hegemony destroyer and accelerated. The destroyer's point defense systems tore the yacht apart, but 3 more civilian ships followed immediately after, then 10 more, then 50. The hegemony fleet faced an enemy that would not stop coming. Soldiers could be killed, warriors could be defeated. But how did you fight an entire species willing to sacrifice everything? Torvin's battleship charged its planet-killer weapon to 80%. 5 more minutes and he could fire. The weapon would crack Earth's crust, boil its oceans, and render it uninhabitable. "Supreme Commander, multiple human vessels approaching our position. Impact in 30 seconds. Torvin looked at the tactical display. 20 human ships, all damaged, all on collision courses with his flagship. He could shoot. Down most of them, but not all. "Evasive maneuvers, get us clear." The massive battleship tried to turn. Too slow, too large. The first human ship, a destroyer named Revenge, struck the port side. The explosion carved a canyon through 50 decks. 2 more ships hit in rapid succession. Torvin's bridge shook violently. Hull breaches on 17 decks. The planet-killer weapon lost power, its charge dissipating. Across the hegemony fleet, similar attacks played out. Every battleship with a charging planet-killer became a priority target. Human ships, fighters, and civilian craft swarmed them like insects attacking giants. The aliens had superior shields, armor, and weapons, but shields failed under sustained ramming attacks. Armor crumpled under repeated impacts. Weapons could not track targets willing to die in exchange for a hit. Patricia watched the enemy battleship count drop. 12 battleships destroyed, 8 more heavily damaged. The planet killers would not fire today. But the cost made her want to weep. Of her 700 military ships, only 90 remained operational. Civilian casualties numbered in the thousands. Earth's orbital infrastructure was shattered. The hegemony still had 3,000 ships left, damaged and disorganized, but still a massive force. If they pressed the attack, they could still win. Torvin stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by sparking consoles and injured crew. He had lost 6,900 ships, against a species his intelligence had called primitive and weak. All ships withdraw to Mars orbit, reform and assess damage. The hegemony fleet retreated. They had the numbers to continue, but not the will, not against an enemy like this. 3 days passed in an uneasy silence. The hegemony fleet regrouped near Mars, licking its wounds. 3,000 ships remained from the original 9,900, each one damaged to some degree. Crew morale had collapsed. Captains from different species argued about whether to continue the assault or retreat entirely. Torvin sat alone in his rebuilt command center. The humans had stopped attacking. Their remaining ships maintained defensive positions around Earth, but made no move to pursue. Both sides seemed to be waiting. Kulrith entered with new reports. Supreme Commander, we have confirmed losses. 6,897 vessels destroyed. Another 300 so. Damaged they cannot fight. We have 2,700 combat-capable ships remaining. Torvin said nothing for a long moment. Then, and the humans. Their military fleet is essentially destroyed. Maybe 100 warships still operational. But, sir, their civilian population has shown willingness to weaponize anything that flies. We estimate they could send another 1,000 improvised attack craft if pressed. A species that turned luxury yachts into missiles. Torvin had conquered 9 systems before this. Never had he encountered such madness. Prepare the fleet for retreat, Torvin said quietly. Kulrith's 4 eyes widened. Sir, we still outnumber them significantly if we press the attack. We lose another 3,000 ships fighting an enemy that cannot be intimidated. No, we withdraw, return to hegemony space, request reinforcements, come back with 50,000 vessels if necessary. Orders went out across the fleet. The hegemony would retreat, regroup, and return in overwhelming force. This battle was lost, but the war could still be won. Patricia Hayes watched the alien fleet begin to move. Intelligence suggested they were preparing to leave the solar system. She immediately opened channels to her surviving forces. All ships the enemy is attempting to withdraw. We cannot allow them to return to their space and bring reinforcements. Hunt them down. Every single ship. Roger Barnes, now flying a barely functional fighter he had cobbled together from 3 wrecks, received the order. Hunt down 3,000 ships with less than 100. Impossible. But they had done impossible things for the past 3 days. All pilots form hunting packs, 3 fighters per enemy ship. Use what we learned, hit and run, disable their engines. The human ships moved to intercept. Not in formation, but as individual predators stalking prey. They had stopped fighting like a military. Now they fought like survivors with nothing to lose. The hegemony fleet split into groups, each heading toward different jump points. Standard retreat protocol. Divide the pursuing force, ensure at least some vessels escape. But the humans did not divide their forces. They followed the largest groups and ignored the smaller ones. Patricia's strategy was simple: kill as many as possible, let a few escape to tell the story. A group of 400 hegemony ships burned toward the outer solar system. 20. Human vessels pursued them. The aliens had overwhelming firepower advantages. The humans had desperation. Roger led his pack toward an alien cruiser at the edge of the formation. His fighters were out of missiles, low on cannon charges, but they had one thing in abundance: momentum. Remember, aim for the engine nacelles. We disable them and let them drift. 3 fighters dove at the cruiser. Point defense systems activated, but human pilots had learned to predict the firing patterns. They jinked and weaved, dancing between energy beams. Roger fired his last plasma rounds directly into the cruiser's port engine. The reactor containment failed. The explosion was not enough to destroy the ship, but it crippled its ability to jump to faster-than-light speed. The cruiser fell behind its formation, unable to keep up. It would drift in space until its crew either repaired the damage or died trying. Across the solar system, the same scene repeated. Human ships, often just fighters or small corvettes, attacked the stragglers of retreating hegemony groups. They did not try to destroy every ship, just cripple them, leave them floating helplessly. Torvin's command ship led a group of 800 vessels toward the heliopause. Behind them, 15 human warships maintained pursuit, too few to stop his escape, but they were not trying to stop him. Missiles launched from the human ships, not aimed at Torvin's vessel but at the ships around him. 3 hegemony destroyers took critical hits. Their engines died. They fell out of formation. "Keep moving," Torvin ordered. "We cannot stop for every disabled ship." But his fleet was bleeding vessels. One by one, ships fell behind. The formation shrank from 800 to 700 to 600. Kulrith checked the tactical display. "Sir, at this rate, the humans will disable half our ships before we reach jump distance." "Then we abandon them," Torvin said coldly. "The mission is to escape. Bring word of this disaster back to the hegemony. Warn them about the humans." 2 weeks after the battle began, the last hegemony ships reached jump distance. Of 3,000 vessels that attempted escape, only 17 made it far enough to engage their faster-than-light drives. 17 ships out of 9,900. Patricia watched the final alien vessels vanish from her sensors. 17 had escaped. Hundreds more drifted throughout the solar system, disabled and helpless. Human recovery teams were already moving to secure them. "Total casualty report," she requested. The numbers came in. Humanity had lost 2,300 military vessels, 4,000 civilian ships, 30 million people dead across Earth and the orbital stations, entire cities damaged from falling debris. But Earth survived. Roger landed his fighter on a damaged space station. He climbed out of the cockpit and collapsed. Other pilots surrounded him, all exhausted beyond measure. They had won. Humanity's first interstellar war, and they had won. On Earth's surface, people emerged from bunkers to see a changed sky. A debris ring now circled their planet, made from the wreckage of thousands of alien ships. A reminder of the battle. A warning to anyone else who came with hostile intent. Those 17 ships that escaped would return to their homeworlds. They would tell the story of 9,900 warships sent to conquer a primitive species. Only 17 survived to tell the tale. 6 months later, the galaxy had changed. The 17 hegemony ships that escaped had spread across their territory, each bringing the same impossible message. Earth had destroyed nearly 10,000 warships. A species using primitive technology had shattered the greatest armada ever assembled. Kulrith stood before the Hegemony Council, a gathering of leaders from all 17 member species. His 4 eyes scanned the chamber, seeing disbelief and fear in equal measure. "You expect us to believe this?" Council leader Vrentis demanded. 9,883 ships destroyed by primitives? Impossible. Kulrith projected the battle recordings, footage of human ships ramming alien vessels. Civilian craft turned into weapons, a species fighting with such ferocity that even victory meant destruction. "I was there," Kulrith said quietly. "I watched it happen. The humans do not fight like any species we have encountered. They fight like cornered animals. No tactic is too desperate, no sacrifice too great." The council chamber fell silent as they watched the recordings. Ship after ship destroyed. Humans using their own vessels as missiles. Civilians volunteering to die alongside their military. "They weaponized their entire solar system," Kulrith continued. "Every asteroid, every moon. They had been preparing for invasion their entire history. We thought we faced primitives. We found apex predators." Torvin, stripped of his rank after the disaster, sat in the chamber as a witness. His mandibles clicked with suppressed rage. "We must return with a larger force," Torvin insisted. 50,000 ships, 100,000, enough to overwhelm them completely. But several council members were already shaking their heads. The battle had cost the hegemony more than ships. It had cost them their reputation. News of the defeat spread across the galaxy. Species that had been conquered now whispered about resistance. The hegemony suddenly looked vulnerable. On Earth, reconstruction continued at a frantic pace. But Admiral Patricia Hayes was not focused on rebuilding. She stood in a newly constructed shipyard on the moon's far side, watching workers assemble the first of humanity's interstellar warships. "How many can we build?" she asked the chief engineer. "With current resources, 500 new ships per year. If we expand operations to the outer planets, maybe 1,000. Patricia nodded. The hegemony would return, everyone knew it. But next time humanity would not fight purely defensively. Roger Barnes walked through the halls of the military academy. He had been promoted to commander and given a teaching position. His job was to train the next generation of fighter pilots. Thousands of young humans wanted to join the service now. The battle had changed humanity's perspective. They were not alone in the universe, and the universe was hostile. "Commander Barnes, you have a visitor," an aide informed him. In his office, Culrith waited. The alien looked smaller somehow without his uniform. He had requested asylum on Earth 3 months ago. The hegemony would have executed him for the defeat. Humanity had granted him sanctuary. "Commander," Culrith said, his translation device converting his speech to English, "I wanted to speak with you about the Academy's curriculum." Over the past months, Culrith had provided extensive information about hegemony technology, tactics, and military doctrine. In exchange, he lived quietly on Earth, helping humanity prepare for what came next. "The hegemony will return," Culrith said, "but they are afraid now. That fear might buy you years to prepare, maybe decades." Roger considered this. "Why help us? We destroyed your fleet, killed thousands of your people." Culrith's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Because I watched humans fight for their home. I saw people who had never held weapons charge into battle in luxury yachts. I witnessed a species that refused to surrender even when faced with extinction." He paused. "The hegemony conquers through fear and overwhelming force. You showed me something different. You showed me courage." Across the galaxy, the other 16 escaped hegemony ships arrived at their home systems. Each captain told the same story. Each report confirmed the disaster. Political shockwaves rippled through hegemony space. Some species called for immediate revenge. Others advocated caution. A few began to question whether the hegemony's expansion should continue at all. On a distant world, a conquered species named the Talvari heard the story. They had submitted to hegemony rule 20 years ago without resistance. Now they wondered, if humans could resist, maybe they could too. Resistance cells began forming on hegemony-controlled worlds, small acts of defiance at first, but the seed had been planted. The hegemony was not invincible. Patricia Hayes addressed the United Nations Assembly. Representatives from every nation on Earth sat together, united by their shared survival. "The battle is over, but the war has not yet begun," she said. "Those 17 ships that escaped will bring reinforcements, bigger fleets, better weapons. We have maybe 5 years before they return." She pulled up a holographic display showing the solar system. "In 5 years, we need to build a fleet that can defend not just Earth, but our entire system. We need to establish bases on other worlds. We need to reach out to species oppressed by the hegemony and offer alliance." The assembly voted unanimously. Every nation committed resources to the military expansion. Humanity would not wait for the next invasion. They would prepare to take the fight to the enemy. Roger stood on the lunar surface, looking at Earth hanging in the black sky. A beautiful blue marble, now ringed by the debris of their victory. 30 million people had died defending it. Their sacrifice would not be forgotten. Behind him, the new shipyards hummed with activity. Humanity's first true warships taking shape. Not defensive platforms, but vessels designed to travel between stars. To carry humanity's message across the galaxy. The message was simple: Earth would not be conquered, and anyone who tried would face the same fate as the hegemony's 9,900 ships. 17 escaped to tell the tale, 17 warnings sent across the stars. Humanity was no longer alone, and they were no longer prey. The age of human isolation had ended.